Okay, so we are going to start with the chapter which is the part of your unit 1. The name of the unit entirely is diversity in the living world. Okay, diversity in the living world. Here we are going to talk about all the different kinds of living organisms that we find around us. Those living organisms will include your plants also, it will include your animals also, it will also include other animals and plants which are not categorized under plants and animals, right? We are going to talk about different kind of kingdoms that we have, and the organisms that are distributed in different kingdoms, right? So in class 9th also you have studied about the different kingdoms, right? 5 kingdom classification you all have studied: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So in these 5 kingdoms, the organisms that fall, we are going to talk about all of them in this unit, right? Now this unit consists of 4 chapters. In these 4 chapters, we are going to cover all the things that diversity needs, right? First, the first chapter is the living world, which we are going to start today. Second chapter, we will talk about the classification of those organisms. We are then going to talk about the separate kingdom called the plant kingdom, where we will talk about lot many features of the plant, whether it's a morphological characteristics or it is the anatomical characteristics. We are going to talk about all of them. Likewise, in chapter 4, under this unit, we have to study about the different kinds of animals. So it is about the animal kingdom, where we will talk about again different characteristics of animals and how they are grouped and classified and many other things. Okay, so let's start with the first chapter, which is the living world, and let's see what all things needs to be known here. Okay, the first thing that we need to know about this chapter is the name of this scientist. If you can see the picture of this scientist, the name of this scientist is Ernst Mayr. Okay, he was born in 1904 and he lived up to 2004, which is like too long to live, isn't it? So they have this person, Mr. Ernst Mayr, has contributed to biology a lot. That is why he is also known as the Darwin of 20th century. Okay, this question has often been asked, children, so please remember this: who is known as the Darwin of 20th century? The name Darwin you are already familiar with. Darwin, who is known as the father of evolution, isn't it? So that Darwin, which is known as the father of evolution, lived a long time back, but this person, Darwin of the 20th century. Okay, he was born on 5th of July 1904 in Germany, and he was a Harvard University evolutionary biologist. Okay, evolutionary biologist. That is why he is known as the Darwin of the 20th century, because he was also involved with evolution, studies of evolution. There was one more question that often comes from here, is that who gave the definition of biological species? Who gave the concept of currently accepted definition of biological species? The person was Mr. Ernst Mayr. Okay, so this point also needs to be remembered. The third thing which is asked from here is who was awarded as the triple crown of biology. Means that 3 different highest prize of biology was given to this person. That is why he is regarded to have received triple crown of biology. What were those prizes? The prizes were Balzan Prize in 1983, International Prize of Biology in 1994, and Crawford Prize in 1999. Okay, so these 3 prizes were given to this person. It's very rare to get all 3 prizes together, but this person got it, so he was also regarded as triple crown of biology. He died at the age of 100. So just imagine, he lived for 100 years and he died in 2004. Okay, so these were just some information about this person which you need to know, and then we are going to move about this chapter, actual chapter, which is the living world. And the first thing which you need to understand here is what is life. Okay, now you see, when I ask you what is life, you will simply say it's a very easy question, sir. Life means anything which has life, right? But the definition of life, how are you going to define it? How are you going to categorize between a living and a non-living object? How and when are you going to say that something has got life in it and something has not got any life into it? Okay, so in this chapter we are going to talk about what is life, how do we define it. If we have to define it in simple terms, we will say that it is a unique and complex organization of molecules that expresses itself through chemical reactions which lead to all these things like growth, development, responsiveness, adaptation, and reproduction. We are going to talk about each one of them in the details, so just pay attention. First, let's try to understand what it says. It is a unique and complex organization of molecules. What are the molecules we are talking about here? The molecules that we are talking about are actually the biomolecules, right? Because these molecules are involved with the living system, hence they are called biomolecules. Bios means life. So the molecules which are existing in a living system will be collectively known as the biomolecules. Can we have some examples of molecules? Yes, we can. Like, for example, protein is one of the example. It's a major part of any living organism. Without protein, none of the living organisms can be thought of be living, isn't it? So protein is one of the major part of any living organisms. If we talk about, let's say, different types of carbohydrates, carbohydrates are also come under the category of biomolecules. They're found exclusively in the living organism, isn't it? Then we also have some fat molecules where you call them as lipids. So yes, fat molecules are there, which are there. Again, we also have molecules such as, let's say, nucleic acid. And this nucleic acid again is a very important component. If anything is alive, it has to have a nucleic acid. You will find some organisms without these three, but none of the organisms are there without nucleic acid. But again, children, as I told you before also, biology is full of exceptions. So, which means that nucleic acid must be playing some role in the transfer of characteristics, isn't it? Or in simple terms, you can say it plays a part in genetics. What is this genetics basically? Genetics is the transfer of information. Okay, see, in broader terms, genetics is all about the study of genes, chromosomes, DNA, and everything. It includes lot many things. Okay, but when we say that the characteristics from the parents to their children needs to be transferred, what will be that carrying or the carrier which will carry those characteristics? For example, let's say we say no that when a child is born, we say that his nose is just like his mother, or his hair is just like his father, his skin color is just like his father, right? So where do those characteristics come from? When we say ki his nose is like her mother or like his mother, what are we actually trying to say? That the characteristics has come from the mother itself. So who has carried those characteristics? This is the nucleic acid only. And where is this nucleic acid found? Of course, the nucleic acid is found in each and every cell of your body. So let's say this is one of your cell. Okay, this is one cell. Inside the cell you have a nucleus. Inside the nucleus you have the chromatin material, which ultimately gets converted into chromosomes, and these chromosomes are the ones which carry the DNA, which looks somewhat like this. You remember the structure of DNA? This is what a DNA looks like, and this DNA is made up of nucleic acid. Okay, so now you understand what is nucleic acid and what is its function. It comes under the category of biomolecules. Clear? So now you see, let's try to understand the definition once again. It says that it is a unique and complex organization of molecules. So all the different molecules that we are talking about, all these molecules have certain organization, certain way in which they will be, present inside a living body. So it's a complex organization. They all will be organized. How is protein interacting with carbohydrate? How is carbohydrate interacting with fat? How is all of them interacting with nucleic acid? It's a complex organization present inside our cell. Okay, that expresses itself through chemical reactions. Very important. Where do you think these things will be formed, and how will these things will be formed? In class 9th also you have talked about in the chapter cell, you have studied about the function of ribosomes. I'm sure you all have heard of ribosomes, children. What are these ribosomes? Who will tell me what is the function of ribosomes? Tell me fast. Yes, you have heard about ribosome. So what is its function?
Protein synthesis.
Of course, it is protein synthesis. So that is why ribosomes are known as the factory of protein synthesis. Factory of protein synthesis. Okay. So it acts as synthesis. It acts as a factory where proteins will be formed. Okay. So how do you think the ribosomes are able to make the protein? Of course, there has to be certain chemical reactions occurring. Okay, in higher as we move on with the chapters, children, we will talk about the actual function of ribosome and how it actually codes for different kinds of protein. You know, thousands and thousands different types of proteins are present inside our body. So how are those different types of proteins manufactured by the ribosomes? And all those proteins have to be different from each other. You know, the proteins, the thousands of proteins which we are talking about are all different from each other, and they perform specific function which we will all talk about. Don't worry about it. So here what it is trying to say is that all these are produced as a result of certain chemical reactions that is occurring inside our cell, or let's say in our body. And you know what those chemical reactions known as collectively? The chemical reactions, let me write it here. The chemical reactions, okay, the chemical reactions occurring inside our body are collectively termed as, yes, tell me children, what is it collectively termed as? We have discussed this. Collectively termed as metabolism. Okay, so what is this metabolism? It is nothing but the different kinds of reaction that is occurring inside our body. Okay, so when these type of reactions are occurring inside our body, different types where the biomolecules are being formed, what it is leading to means why are we actually producing them? So it will lead to growth. Okay, so a cell grows, likewise an organism grows, right? Because when you were born, you were like 3 to 5 kgs in weight, but as you have aged through the years, you have gained some weight, your body has grown, your limbs have grown, your head has grown, your body has grown. Where has that growth come from? Those growth has actually come from the reactions, the different chemical reactions that were occurring inside your cell, and which is right now also occurring inside your body. It will continue to work till the time a person is dead. Okay, so yes, this growth is a result of the complex reactions occurring. Development again is a result of different chemical reaction. Responsiveness, adaptation, reproduction, all these are a result of the complex organization and interaction of those molecules inside our body. We are going to talk about each one of them in detail as we move on, but I hope at least this point is clear as to what is life. You see, these reactions which are occurring inside a cell is a characteristics of a living body only. You cannot expect same things happening in a non-living entity. For example, let's say that right now you are holding a pen, let's say. So that pen, you know, already is a non-living object. It does not have life inside it, which means that it will not show any growth. It will not show any development, responsiveness, adaptation, or it will also not reproduce, right? Because all these phenomena are a characteristics of living body, where there is chemical reactions occurring inside the cell, but that does not happen in case of a non-living object. Okay, chalo, let's quickly check the characteristics of living beings. As we all know, all living beings will have definite shape and size. A definite organization will be there. They will grow and develop. They will show metabolism. I just talked about. Reproduction is one of the features of living body. They have to reproduce from one body to another. I mean, their number has to increase. Homeostasis, we will talk about homeostasis also. It's basically the regulation of temperature inside a body, which only a living organism does. So we also have consciousness, means that we are aware of our surrounding. If it's too hot outside, we come to know. If it's too cold outside, we come to know. But that does not happen with the non-living things. Adaptation, we adapt to our environment, which whatever kind of environment it is, we tend to adapt ourselves. But that is not done by the non-living objects. Evolution, again, very important. We are continuously evolving. So right from a single cell, when the earth came into existence and when the life actually came into existence, from that time on we have been continuously being evolved. Okay, so currently also we have evolved to become a human being. That does not mean that the evolution has stopped. The evolution is still going on, and maybe after, let's say, millions of years, the human beings also may evolve to something else. So that is a continuous process. Repair and regeneration, again, a very important phenomena. If we get a cut or a bruise somewhere, it does not stay there for lifelong, isn't it? For the entire life, that bruise will not be there, that cut part will not be there, it will repair itself, you know. So that is one of the phenomena of a living being only. We cannot expect the same thing with a non-living object. Aging, of course, we age. As the time moves on, we continue to age, and then finally we become dead, isn't it? So if the reactions inside our body stop, we say that a person has become dead. So that is all the characteristics of living beings. In a nutshell, if we have to see the different characteristics, we can say that growth is involved, reproduction is involved, body organization is involved, consciousness should be there, metabolism should be there, and there has to be a presence of cellular organization as well. Okay, now let's talk about each one of them in little more detail. Okay, and I'll also tell you from which part the question comes in your exam. It's not only for your school exams, but in the NEET also the number of questions have been asked from these parts. I will tell you from which part the question has come. So what is growth? If we have to define growth, we can simply say that when something grows in its height or when something grows in its width, right? So there has to be some addition of materials in any of those things, then only we call it a growth, right? So for example, let's say that growth can be said to have increase in mass or increase in number. So if we have to say that there is a cell, let's say this is a cell, okay? So either this cell will grow to become a bigger cell because of the addition of certain materials inside, this cell may grow and become a bigger cell. That is one, that will be a growth. But we can say it as growth when it, you know, divides into two cells, then also we will say that it has shown growth, isn't it? Because what happens in our body, you see, in our body what happens is that our cell is also dividing. So when our cell is dividing, it is getting from one cell to two cells, from two cells to four cells. So actually that division of the cells is actually causing the growth inside our body. This is how we grow, right? So the division of cells can be called as growth, and the increase in the mass of a particular cell can also be termed as growth. But you see, children, for a unicellular organism, let's try to discuss that itself here. For a unicellular organism, when we say unicellular, what we mean is that we are talking about an organism which is made up of only one cell, right? So let's say this is one organism. Let's say this is a bacteria. This is a single cell, isn't it? Now this single cell is life in itself. It is, the entire life is in this one cell only, right? So if this cell has to grow, right, what it will do is it will divide into two cells, right? It will divide into two cells. So now there are two different cells which have been formed from one single cell, right? So this is a type of growth. They are growing in number. Can we not say they are growing in number? Yes, of course, they are growing in number. But can we also not say that the bacteria is reproducing? Because after reproduction, only the number of individuals are becoming more and more, isn't it? So you see here, in case of unicellular organisms, let me write it here. In unicellular cellular organisms, in unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction, you see, both of them, growth and reproduction, are same. Means you talk about the growth of an organism or you talk about the reproduction of an organism, both are the same things in unicellular organisms, because it is only made up of single cell. So we cannot demarcate But when we talk about, let's say, a multicellular organism, for example, human beings, right? Here, can you say that the growth and reproduction are the same things? No. Why? Because you see, let's say this is a multicellular organism with lots of cells, trillions and trillions of cells are present, isn't it? And these trillions of cells that are present here are together making up one organism, isn't it? So let's say this is one organism. This is one organism having these many number of cells. So here you see that when individual cells try to reproduce, what will happen? The number of cells will increase, or you can say that maybe the volume of the cell is increasing along with the number, the volume is increasing. So the weight is always being gained by this organism. So the division of the cells have taken place inside this organism, but still the organism is one only. We don't say that due to the division of cells, new individual has been formed. No, this division of cell is occurring inside the body only, and only the number of cells are increasing, but we cannot say that a new individual has been formed. Let's say this was a human being. So lot many cells are dividing inside a human body. So it's not that after every division a new human being is formed. No. So we cannot say that or we can simply write in multicellular organisms, in multicellular organisms, growth and reproduction, okay, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive event. What we mean by this term mutually exclusive, children, and this is the term from which the question has been asked in your NEET exam. Mutually exclusive means both of them are different, means growth is absolutely different from reproduction in case of multicellular organisms. The term that we use for such things are mutually exclusive. But here in case of unicellular organism, it is not mutually exclusive. It's one or the same thing. So it is not mutually exclusive. Word means that two things which we are talking about are entirely different. But in unicellular organisms, you see both of them are the same, isn't it? They are same, growth and reproduction. Clear, everyone? So I hope it is clear to you, because this was the point which needs to be clarified. This has come in your exam. That is why it needs to be highlighted more. So let's read through those points. It says that increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of growth. This is one of the questions that has also come in your exam. Twin characteristics of growth. Simply it will ask the twin characteristics of growth are, and the options given to you will be increase in mass, decrease in number of individuals, decrease in mass, increase in number of individuals, increase in mass, increase in number of individuals, and any of the fourth options. So you have to understand that twin characteristics of growth will include, there has to be increase in mass of an individual, means the actual weight, the entire weight of an individual is increasing with the increase in number of individuals. Okay, so we call it as a twin characteristics of growth. Twin characteristics of growth. So just remember that. Then we have unicellular organisms grow in number. So this also we have talked about. In case of a single celled organisms, what happens is growth in number by cell division. So how when do we say that a unicellular organism is growing? Whenever there is a growth in the number of cells. And how are they doing that? They are doing it by cell division. Here, growth and reproduction means the same. Clear? So in unicellular organism, growth and reproduction means the same. But in case of higher animals, in majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. Again a term. So what is this term basically? Mutually exclusive means they are two different things. We cannot say that they are the same things. They are absolutely different. Because in higher animals and plants, growth takes place by the division of cells. Reproduction occurs by some specific cells by different mechanism, which we will study in sexual reproduction. Okay, so in higher animals, the growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive. Just remember that. Then we have multicellular organisms grow by cell division, that is growth from inside. Very important term, children. What it says basically is that multicellular organisms such as us, they grow by cell division. So there are a number of cells that are dividing inside our body. We may never notice that, but inside our body, lots and lots of cells are dividing continuously. Millions and millions of cells are dividing every second in your body. So you see, the growth is from inside. The growth is from inside the body. It's not that if an individual is there, let's say there's an individual and the growth is taking place. So this growth is taking place from outside, which means that the cells are being increased from outside. It is accumulating from outside and the person is continuing to grow. No, it's not like that. The growth has to take place from within, means from inside to outside. So if this is a cell, the growth will be from inside to outside. This is a characteristics of any living organism. But children, here you need to understand one more thing, that growth is not a defining property of a living organism. We will write here, growth is not a defining feature of living beings. Why are we saying this? You will say, sir, growth, when we write that the growth is not a defining feature of living being, we are simply implying that growth can occur in non-living things also. But that is so never happen. No, growth does not take place in non-living. It can only take place in living. No, it's not like that. Growth do occur in non-living objects also. For example, let's say the mountains. Okay, mountains grow. You will say, sir, how will the mountain grow? So you see, each year on the mountain there are certain particles which get accumulated. Okay, so if this is a mountain, let's say, you will find that if you have calculated the length of this mountain in a year, particular year, for example, let's say you say that it is 100 meters, for example. After, let's say, 2 or 5 years, when you go, no, you will find that number of substances have accumulated on this hill like this from outside. Dust and the plants and number of things have been accumulated here. So when you come after 5 years and you try to measure the actual height of the mountain or a hill, no, you will find that the length has increased. This length has increased, so maybe it will be 110 meters now. So where has the growth come from? This is a non-living thing, no, but still we see that they are growing. Big boulders are there, big rocks and are there, which also continue to grow as the life moves on. The ice crystals tend to grow in the places. So you see, number of non-living objects are also growing due to the accumulation of materials from outside. Okay, so that is why we say that it's not a defining feature. It's not a defining feature. Though growth will be shown by living objects only, the growth has to be from inside. Okay, so when you consider growth as a defining property, you have to also mention that the growth has to occur from inside. Here the growth is not occurring from inside, but it is occurring from outside. So that is why growth is not taken to be as a defining feature, and that is what is written here. You see, non-living objects like mountains or boulders, sand molds, they are also growing, but it is by accumulation of material on the surface, that is from the outside. Hence, growth cannot be taken as the defining property of living organisms. Okay, so in exam you will get this question, which of the following is the defining feature of living organisms? The options given to you will be growth, second option will be reproduction, third option will be, let's say, consciousness, fourth option will be something else. You have to choose among them. You will say that, sir, all the options that were mentioned there were the characteristics of living beings only. So how would we have selected the right answer? You will come to know about that in this chapter. How are you going to select that? See, certain defining property has been given in this chapter, and certain non-defining properties have also been given. You need to understand each one of them. When do we say that something is a defining characteristics and something is when it is not? You see, when there is no exception, absolutely no exception to the property, then we say that it is a defining property. We will talk about that also. What is the defining property which has no exception? It has to be present inside a living body. We will talk about that. Let's move on to reproduction. So children, I hope it is clear now that growth cannot be taken as a defining property of living organism that we have discussed. So this was number one. Let's move on to the second property of a living organism, which is reproduction. Okay, so what is reproduction? As we all know, reproduction means that any organism, when it multiplies itself, or let's say when the number of individual increases, we say that reproduction has taken place. This reproduction can either be asexual, right, or it can be sexual. That doesn't matter. The only thing which matters here is that whether an individual is able to convert it from one individual to two individuals or no. Whether it is by the asexual or asexual is another matter. But if they are able to continue their species by increasing their number, we say that reproduction has taken place. So what is reproduction? Basically, it is the ability of an individual to give rise to new individual of its own kind, right? Because what happens in reproduction? In reproduction, the new individuals which come, they are actually the replica of their parents only, isn't it? That is what a reproduction is. So they will produce new individual of its own kind. It may be sexual or asexual. So yes, it can be either a sexual mode where two parents will be involved, or it will be asexual where only one parent will be involved. What are the different modes of sexual as well as asexual reproduction? We will talk about those also in details as we move on. But here some examples are given for asexual mode of reproduction. For example, in fungi, the multiplication occurs or the reproduction occurs by asexual spores. Okay, so what are these spores? We will talk about it as we move on with the chapter further, but you have a little bit idea about the spores of fungi, which you have already studied in your 9th class, right? Or I think in 10th class also you have studied in the chapter reproduction. You have talked about how the spores are produced in case of rhizopus. Do you remember the bread mold? The bread mold that is present, how it reproduces, you already are familiar with it. So just remember that the fungi multiply by asexual spores. We are going to talk about those in details in the topic fungi, so don't need to worry about it. Then comes your hydra. There also you have studied that hydra is the one which multiplies by budding. You remember the bud takes place. Suppose this is the hydra. Let's say this is the hydra. A small bud starts to come out, and that bud afterwards fall down, and the new individual is formed. That is what budding is. Planaria reproduces by regeneration. You remember how the planaria reproduces. So let's say if this is the planaria, this is the planaria, let's say. So this planaria, if you cut the planaria into several pieces, no, each piece has the capacity to become a new individual. That is what regeneration was. So planaria can reproduce by regeneration. Now you see everywhere there is no involvement of a second parent. It's only from one parent that a new individual is being formed. Hence they are considered as asexual reproduction. For example, in algae, in case of Spirogyra, children, do you remember this was Spirogyra like this, and this Spirogyra was fragmented from between. Suppose it was cut or due to certain reason it was broken. So each broken piece will develop into a new individual. That is what fragmentation was. Okay. Now, whenever we are talking about these characteristics that a living being will reproduce, does that mean that if a thing is living, it has to reproduce? It's not true, children. Here also there are certain exceptions. So we can simply say reproduction is also not a defining feature of living beings. It's not a defining feature of living beings. Why are we saying this? Is because, children, you see, you will say, sir, all living things will reproduce. Otherwise, how will they continue their species? So this statement is not looking right. that reproduction is not a defining feature. It has to be a defining characteristics, but no, it is not. Why? Because you see, there are some animals which are very much alive, but they don't reproduce at all. For example, let's say mule. I'm sure you have heard of mule. Mule is what? A cross between a donkey and a horse. So that mule that is produced as a result of cross between horse and donkey, which belong to different species, this mule is not able to reproduce. It does not have the capacity to reproduce, but still we find that these mules are living, isn't it? You can see it in the picture here. This is what a mule is looks like. It's not a donkey also, it's not a horse also, but it is a mule which will not be able to reproduce any further. Okay. Or if we take example of, let's say, worker bee. Okay, worker bee. So in a colony of bee, there are drones, there are worker bees, there is a queen. So the worker bee which are there, no, they are sterile. They are sterile, which means that they do not reproduce at all. Okay, so just remember them also. Then we have human infertile couples. Infertile couples. Okay, there are many individuals which are not able to reproduce. For example, the eunuchs that are there, isn't it? The eunuchs, they are not able to reproduce. There are many other individuals also which are not able to reproduce. That is why they need to go to a doctor, and for to reproduce or to produce a new child, they have to undergo the entire process of IVF, if you remember. So IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, is for the couples who are infertile, isn't it? So can we say that these things are not living things? We cannot. We know that they are living things, but still they are not able to reproduce. Hence, reproduction is also not a defining characteristics of a living beings. Remember that. Okay, so growth was also not defining characteristics. Reproduction is also not defining characteristics. So what is defining characteristics? We'll talk about it, don't worry. Let's read through it. Many organisms such as mules or sterile worker bee or infertile human couples do not reproduce, yet they are living. Children, please remember these three examples, because this is the one which has already come in your exam. Okay, so remember at least these three examples: mules, sterile worker bee, infertile human couples. They do not reproduce, yet they are living. Hence, reproduction also cannot be taken as a defining property of living organisms.